Women Talking Money podcast. My name is Gretchen from Magenta Financial Planning, and today I'm joined by Kathy Griffiths. Kathy is a counsellor and runs the Blackwood Wellbeing Centre. Despite building a successful teaching career, in 2021 she took the leap of faith to leave teaching and open the Blackwood Wellbeing Centre, becoming a full-time counsellor. The centre offers a huge range of therapists, each specialising in their own professional fields, such as reflexology, counselling and life coaching. And as well as being the heart of Blackwood Wellbeing, Kathy is a certified mental health counsellor as well. So welcome, Kathy, and thank you for joining me today.
Hey there, nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So do you want to just, I've given that introduction. Is there anything else you'd like to add? And so the listeners know what it is you really doing at the Wellbeing Centre and how you can assist people.
I wear many hats. So I run the Wellbeing Centre. Like you said, we've got many rooms. We offer all sorts of different therapies. But I think one of the things that I really do like is seeing other women, because we are predominantly women here, not on purpose, it's just the way it's turned out, but bringing other women and giving them the ability to start their own business. And whether that's a business that they do one day a week around another job, or a couple of days a week around the family, or as some people do, a full-time job here, it's giving people the power and the tools and the skills and the space to start having their own freedom and build some more of their own choices. So for the Wellbeing Centre, that's something I'm quite passionate about. And from the counselling hat, it's a really, really hard but really, really fulfilling role. It sounds awful, but I really like it when clients leave. So a client tends to arrive, maybe like something you see from a film, tears, crisis, chaos, trauma. And we work quite an open-ended model, but after X length of time, when they get to the breakup stage, as I call it, and they go off into the world on their own, as hard as that is, that shows that I've done my job and they're leaving in a better place. It's very fulfilling.
Excellent, absolutely. It sounds, I think I was going to say so different from my role. I think it is different, completely different from my role. But any time when you can see someone leave your office and your space in a better position than when they came in is so fulfilling.
Absolutely. And from a counselling point of view, and this is probably true with financial planning, I see most of my clients once a week and I can see the gradual change in them. And I think it's something that you don't notice unless you're looking for it. And obviously I look for it. But people tend to arrive stooped, quite literally weighed down by the weight of the world. And over a period of time, you can see them blossoming and just leaving in a better way. And it's wonderful.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Today, we're here to talk a bit openly, more about money and the role of this, what I hope this podcast is starting to achieve. We're in series 3 now, but it's starting to achieve is just, it's okay to talk about money. It's really important that we talk about money and we maybe think harder about our relationship with money and how that can impact all aspects of our life. So I'll start with my first question, which is around sort of early money memories. So what's your earliest memory of money and how do you think it shaped your views that you have today?
I talked about this with my parents when they found out I was coming on this podcast. And my mother reminded me that when I was very, very young, we had a till, but it was a real till. So my mother's parents, so my grandparents, ran a shop and they had the really old-fashioned Victorian till with the big buttons that you put.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously they didn't want it. They wanted the newfangled till with all the nice digitalness. So my brother and I had it and we played with it. It was in our playroom. And we used to have 2p's and 1p's and paper bags. But we had a shop with a real till with real money. And I think that's one of the earliest memories. But tying on from that, my father's side of the family were also in retail. They had menswear. My mother's side had fancy goods. And it was really common to go and work in the shop, even when I was 3, 4, 5, giving people change and giving them what they bought in their bags, etc. So I guess money has always been around and kind of like in a cold hard cash way. This would have been before credit cards and tap and go. The thing that just popped into my head is I can remember my dad getting his first Visa card and you had the big plastic machine with the carbon copies, and it went clunk, clunk. So this is before that. This is when money was around, rather than my children are 18, 19 and 20. And for them, it's all digital money. It's not real money. So I guess those would be some of those earliest memories, would just be real money and actually working with money in a real way.
And do you think that, having reflected and talked to your parents about that, and as you're remembering those things, do you think that shaped the way that you view money today? Because it's quite interesting that you said money was sort of always around, but it, even from a young age, like working in the shop at that age. So how do you think it's kind of shaped how you behave with money, or how you feel about money now?
I think, to give it a bit of context, I'm based in the South Wales Valley, so I grew up in the South Wales Valley. The miners' strike, the mines were closing, there was a lot of hardship around. But I'm quite lucky that my father's side of the family were pretty affluent, so he always had, I know they had a good relationship with money, but he came into quite a lot of money quite young. So for me, growing up, there was cold hard cash around a lot. I used to help my dad count the money and build stacks of £20 notes and that sort of thing. But I think I'm also aware now how lucky I was. So geographically, like I said, lots of hardship. But as a family, we were very lucky that hardship, sounds awful to say, it didn't really impact us. But financially, I don't think it did. Or if it did, my parents protected us from it. But that said, I don't know that actually helped me with my relationship with money. I think it set me up with an idea that it's always going to be there. This ever-flowing well that will just keep coming. And to a point it did, but there also came a point when I turned 18, 19, that the well got cut off and it was all down to Kathy. And then maybe Kathy didn't have the skills that she needed.
Yeah, so interesting. It feels like money was there, but not necessarily, as you say, sort of spoken about, or it was there and it was spoken about as in, we're going to maybe count this money, or we're going to,
Yeah.
go to bank this money, or, this is the cost of something that you were selling, but maybe not as in the skill set of how that applies going forward in life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Budgeting. How do you pay a bill? What does a bill even look like? Money was there, but the knowledge and the experience and the confidence around money probably wasn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how did you, when you got to that 18, 19, then you're cut off, you've got to move forward, on your own. How do you remember how it felt to kind of have to learn some of this stuff and move forward with that?
Oh, if you said, how did I manage? My answer would have been badly. I went to university in London at 18. Very, very lucky. Dad paid fees, Dad paid my accommodation, and Mum and Dad obviously gave me an allowance every week. But being 18, living in London, I flew through that in about half a minute. And so I probably had the world's biggest overdraft. I also ran up quite a bit of credit card debt. And I was just living in there. Who cares? I'm 18. I'm in London. I'm a student. Let's go out. Let's buy this. Let's do that. So, yeah, badly. I managed it badly. And I learnt the hard way, I think, despite having probably quite my partner says silver spoon upbringing, quite a privileged upbringing, but really falling a bit flat on my face between 18 and maybe 25 before I learnt some lessons.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that you talk to your parents about this because of the questions I'd put forward in advance and recording this, because I'm sure that all parents and parents listening to this, you're always thinking, how am I going to equip my child best for the world? But you want them to have everything that you can possibly offer them, and you don't want them to worry about things that they don't need to worry about. And certainly growing up in that environment, as you say, in the valleys where there would have been serious hardship.
Yeah, serious.
I imagine it was quite hard for them to know, and then also just, I mean, I can resonate. I know that my parents sort of probably despaired between the ages of 19 and 25 or 26 as to sort of how bad I was, even though I was earning money.
Yeah.
And I think we're not prepared for how to, as you say, how to budget, or there's so much pressure, isn't there, to, like, you know, as you said, you were in London, keeping up with what's going on in London, keeping up with the Joneses now we refer to so often, and those pressures now social media put on us. It's a really tricky line to follow.
It is. It's really, really difficult. And I actually hear what you say. I think parents try their absolute best and want to give their children everything. But I just query if maybe sometimes a little bit of tough love would be the best way forward. I've got 3 children. I was quite harsh. My children had paper rounds from the age of 13. And it was a case of, yes, you have your pocket money, but you need to get yourself a job. You need to learn those skills. If you want extra, you have to earn it, which was very different. If I wanted extra, I just asked. The
Yeah,
difference is I wasn't in a position to just give it to them either. So I didn't have the option of just saying, yeah, there you go, there's 20 quid, there's 20 quid. It was, well, if you want it, off you go. But I think
yeah.
my children have got a much better relationship with money at their age now than I did.
So that's quite interesting, though, because actually, in a roundabout way, the answer then to the question of how do you think it shaped your views is you now have learnt, or you learnt from what was potentially not a great way to do it, to how you can have improved it for your children.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. But yeah, they're definitely much better. My son is working full time, and him and his girlfriend, they were very lucky. They've had a trust fund, but they've also saved a lot of money. And at the age of 20, they've got a nice chunk of cash saved for a deposit for a house. My daughter's in university, but she's in university. She's got a job. She's working alongside it. She's managing her money. She's budgeting really, really well. And those conversations are quite open. Whereas for myself, when I was 18, goodness me, I can remember being terrified of going home in case my parents found out how big my overdraft was.
Yeah, absolutely. But then that's about, I guess, having a more, you know, as you say, good conversations, being open about talking about money, all of those things, really.
Absolutely. And I guess that's what those early experiences of my childhood, at the time I wouldn't have said that I've learned, but now the knock on is it's had a positive effect, I hope, for my children.
Mm,
In another 30 years' time, they might disagree, but
yeah.
right now, I hope that's been the impact that has benefited me in the long run, but them hopefully to start out at 18, 19, 20 in a better way.
Yeah. So, what do you think there's been a specific person or event that has influenced the way or influenced your personal relationship with the money?
I think it would have to be my dad, simply because my dad was the one that held, if I said held the purse strings, but he was always, I guess, like I said, it's the 80s. He was the man of the house. He held the purse strings. Mum worked, but they had a joint account. He paid the bills. So I guess dad in some ways, but then also mum. I can remember my mum used to have the family allowance. She used to have the little red book when I was growing up with the family allowance, and used to go to the post office to collect her family allowance. And she'd get her family allowance, and then she used to buy £1 stamps for the TV licence and stick them into this little collector card for the TV licence. But she used to save up her family allowance, so she used to wait 2 or 3 weeks for her family allowance, and then she'd go in and collect her family allowance, and we'd have a crazy day out on a Saturday. And that was the thing. And I can remember going in and seeing mum getting this money. Now, to my mind, it just looked like loads of money. But then we'd jump in her car, dad would be working, and myself, my brother, my mum, and we'd go off somewhere and just do something crazy with the family allowance money. So I guess the two of them, dad for maybe being quite tight, and mum for doing that, let's just go, let's have fun, let's spend money, let's just go. So I think both of them have influenced it in different ways.
What's quite
Maybe my
interesting
mum.
with your mum is that she consciously though saved and budget, like didn't like saved it up. So it
Yeah.
whilst it was maybe frivolous or could have been deemed as that. It wasn't really, because she'd gone, I'm not going to spend it on other things. I'm saving it up to be able to have this treat.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Which is another thing I hadn't even realised until I was going through the questions for today, that I thought, wow, actually, that fun money, that probably comes from my mum, from all those Saturdays where we'd have those silly days out, crazy days out, where it used to be, let's have lunch, let's have a cake, you want a gift from the gift shop? Yes, let's do this. Just like, money doesn't matter type thing for the day. But like you say, she budgeted for that.
Yeah, and what a lovely memory though to have, that you just went off and had that fun.
Yeah, it is. It was lovely. I really used to like those Saturdays. They were good fun, and it was quite bonding as well, because it was just the three of us, my brother and I, of a Saturday. Silly times.
Nice. And so, how would you describe your current relationship with money in one word, and why?
In one word, my word would be waterfall.
Okay.
And I think that's because it comes and goes. Something that I had to get used to when I opened the Wellbeing Centre and stopped earning a regular wage was that I don't get paid once a month anymore. My clients pay as they go. I get paid rent from all the therapists here once a month. But waterfall would be the word, because it comes in and it goes out, and it comes in and it goes out. So yeah, money would be waterfall, because it never stays around for long.
And I guess as well, it's not always consistent. Like a waterfall, sometimes it's got a lot more water on it than other times when it doesn't have as much water in it. And that self-employment adjustment is major, right? In the kind of like weekly flows or monthly inflows, monthly outflows. Sometimes it's weekly inflows and monthly outflows, and how you're budgeting and stretching around that.
And trying to think longer term. When I was teaching, 28th of the month, and it comes easy. Thank you very much. Budget for a month, so much for savings. But now being self-employed, it really is about trying to box clever for the longer term. And not necessarily pension longer term, because that's always been going on in the background, but just, okay, well, this month has been good, but what if March isn't so good? I can't rely that because this month has been good, every month is going to be good following on from this. Like you say, sometimes the waterfalls are in flow, and sometimes there's a drought and there isn't much water.
Yeah. And it is absolutely the one thing, it's a massive adjustment, and from employed work, well, getting your paycheck every month, a pay slip every month, and money in the bank every month. It's a big adjustment. Is there anything that you've learned from that adjustment that you would share with people who are listening, who might be thinking about doing that move from employed to self-employed, but things that maybe you've learned or either went wrong and you've corrected? And I know that wasn't a question I'd sort of prepped for, but I think it's quite important to think about.
I think something that the centre opened in 2021, so we're approaching our fourth year. So for me, it's my fourth year as well. And this kind of ties back to mum. I think it's about trying not to have so many crazy days. That I know maybe 2022 we were doing quite well, and they weren't stupid crazy, but there were quite a few. Oh, let's do it, come on, let's go out for a posh meal in Cardiff, let's get an Uber home, let's do that, it'll be fine. Yeah, I've got money, I've been paid, it's great. And that kind of really ties back to mum and her fun Saturdays. But I think there also came a point of, actually, Catherine, you probably need to not have quite so many silly Saturdays and put some of this money in the bank, because the river, the waterfall, will go into drought, and you're going to be sat there going, well, we can't go out because we went out 6 times last month. Let's just get a bit more sensible. But that's quite a new lesson to have learned. I think that lesson has come along from realising, being self-employed and running your own business, it's not always consistent. So you have to be a bit more savvy.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think it's quite hard as well, isn't it? It's so hard to find that balance, and it doesn't mean that you can't. I think what I'm hearing is it doesn't mean you can't do it, but that it has to be, controlled and maybe reined in a bit, and it's not quite as free as maybe it could have been previously.
Yeah, I think when I was teaching and it was salaried, it was far easier to budget because, touch wood, I wasn't going to lose my job. So you know that X amount is hitting the bank. You know I can save this much. I can, the mortgage is this much, the food is this much, that much goes in the holiday fund. This is what's left over for fun. But being self-employed, that consistency is maybe taken away a bit, especially for the first few years of business. So you've built up a buffer.
Yeah, absolutely. So this kind of plays in quite well, really, to that conversation around what you're doing now and that big change from teaching and full-time and full employment to self-employment. But what role do you think that money played in shaping your career choices and making that decision, or opportunities that have come up, like the opportunity to leave teaching to the Wellbeing Centre? What role did money play in those decisions for you?
I think going back to childhood, part of my upbringing was that I could do anything. I could do anything. I could be anything. So that, I think, gave me the confidence to be in teaching, but to do other training. But also when it came to thinking about opening this business, I don't think I ever had a doubt that I could do it. There was maybe an arrogance that I could do that. I don't really think that money really came into the consideration, which may be quite blinkered and stupid. I know when we opened here, we had 5 rooms. We had a little bit of money in the bank, but I furnished it room by room. We didn't have enough of a budget to furnish every single room. And everything here came from a charity shop. I'm the queen of thrifting, and I love a charity shop and I love a bargain. But I think the way that money maybe played into this was the arrogance that I could do it, but then the ability to do it on a budget and to do it slowly but surely, one room at a time, build it up. It doesn't matter if it takes a while. Maybe the arrogance again, if you build it, they will come.
And I think, I think that there's something there about the fact that maybe it's accepting that, if you really want to go for something, as you say, being able to do it on a budget, but being aware that, it's not going to be, Instagram perfect to begin with, that it's got to get off the ground and established, and then things can happen.
Yeah.
We understand that secondhand. I think some of the team will remember, like, the first fridge that we had in the office at Magenta was one that we got from the Red Cross shop that cost £30, and it lasted for, I think we only threw it away a couple of years ago because we didn't want to spend that money.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is, like I said, entering our 4th year of business. And now this year, we're starting to do some more in-depth renovations. In the offices, we've got wood chip, which makes my skin crawl. But that's going to be removed, and we can't afford to do all of the buildings. It's a very big, very old building. But we've got the plan and the budget to do it room by room over the next couple of years, to actually now turn it into the Wellbeing Centre that I want and I envisaged, rather than the Wellbeing Centre that I could afford.
I mean, that's a massive money lesson, or money process, I guess, isn't it? That I think is really important for listeners to take away when we're thinking about setting up businesses, and how that's going to go, is that, to start off with, there's a budgetary potential constraint, but ongoing, you're not going to suddenly be able to do everything, and that it might take time and effort and clear budgeting.
Yeah, and I think that's something that maybe gets a bit lost with social media and Instagram. As you said, it's not Instagram perfect. But I think if you're opening your own business, if you don't have the big budgets, then you have to accept what you can afford and those constraints to be able to take the leap to start your own business, or accept that you're going to start your own business with a lot of debt from having the new fridges and the perfect sofas from IKEA, SCS.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you think you approach, I guess, from a personal perspective, and given the highs and lows and waterfall impact of money at the moment, how do you approach the balance between saving for the future and enjoying your wealth today, or those crazy, we'll call them the crazy Saturdays, but how's that approach now for you?
I think I can remember learning at some point, I don't remember where, but I remember learning about the brown envelope theory of financial planning, whereby you have an envelope for everything. And I guess I kind of learned in my mid-20s that in a modern way. So in my mid-20s, I worked in hospitality, and I worked with a lovely, wonderful lady, Shelley, who taught me a lot about business. But she used to have a fund for everything. Everything had a fund. And that kind of became my way. So I've got a silly fund, a holiday fund, a Christmas fund, a meals out fund, a redecorating fund, a new car fund, a pension. I've got pots all over the place. And I guess that's my way of planning for the future and managing where we are financially now, that I know what we need from a monthly budget, and that's the first thing to be put aside. I also know what I want to put into my pension, so that's the second thing that goes. And then everything else kind of gets split between different pots.
Yeah,
And then when there's enough, we'll have a crazy Saturday.
I think there are so many things out there now that have replaced that brown envelope. But I deal with clients who have had that ingrained in them for years. Banking now, banking apps that do it, where you can move money around into different spaces and set that up. And it's a very good, it's a good way of managing to budget and do those things. So yeah, that sounds like a good philosophy.
I think for me, if I didn't, I know what would happen. I'd look in the bank, I'd see there's a few spare £100 and just be like, let's go shopping, let's do this, let's do that. And I can be very of the moment and instant gratification. So by actually not having it sitting there makes me stop and think rather than just spend.
Yeah, so it's allocated out, it's given its place for what it's going to be spent on, and it kind of reduces that. Yeah, that's getting that dopamine hit of just instantly buying something because we've got that little bit of excess.
Yeah, when reality is, from my own experience, I've done that, got home, it's gone in the wardrobe, and that's as far as it's got.
Yeah.
So by not having money just sitting there stops me doing that, which just then, like I say, makes me think a bit more and help with more long-term planning.
So moving on, because a few more minutes and we'll wrap up. What does financial freedom mean to you, and how are you working towards it, Kathy?
I thought about this one quite long and hard, and I can remember when I was a single parent with my two children. I was working, I was doing supply teaching, but the agency that I was with at the time, you didn't get holiday pay, so you only obviously got paid if you worked as supply. And it must have been a drought waterfall that, I think the waterfall was absolutely dry, but I can remember being temporarily absolutely brassic. I can remember making a game of it. My children are going to listen to this podcast and they'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe, Mum. But making a game of hunting down the back of the sofa to try and find some money, because we were, we didn't have pennies. We were absolutely brassic waiting to be paid. And I can remember I found a £5 note in the lint dryer tray of the tumble dryer and feeling like I'd won the lottery. And we went to Lidl and we bought a packet of sausages and a packet of potatoes, and we had sausage, mash and onion gravy for tea, and then I got paid the next day. But I can remember that. I can also remember doing sums in my sleep and trying to, literally being so worried about money, doing sums in my sleep, falling asleep worrying about bills, and literally spreadsheets in my sleep, and waking up feeling like I hadn't slept and I spent the entire night calculating. So I think financial freedom is not for me about having lots of money, but it's that free of worry and hunting the tumble dryer for £5 notes, looking down the back of the sofa, but just not worrying, not falling asleep worrying about money and waking up thinking about money. Just having enough to just not worry without there being a huge abundance.
And that peace of mind that you can, go to sleep at night without dreaming of whether you can afford your sausages and potatoes
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
the family. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask one other question and then we'll do a closing piece. But if money was no object, how do you think your life might look different, if at all?
I really don't think it would look that different. If money were no object, there are some things I'd like to get done in the house. They would be done. Certain walls would be knocked down, and we have a big pond built for the koi carp, and some things like that would be done if money was no object. But I think that really is about all that would change. I'd still work. I might work maybe one day less a week, but that wouldn't change because I love what I do. I wouldn't move because I love where I live. Yeah, I might go on more holidays or more expensive holidays, but I really don't think, I might be wrong, I might shoot myself in the foot, but I really don't think it would change that much because on the whole, pretty happy. I've built a life that I like, doing something that I love with people that I work well with and that are wonderful to work with, and I've got a fabulous, fabulous family. I'm blessed.
It's amazing. Excellent. Good. So as we wrap up, I thought this season what I'm going to do is try and ask you to leave listeners with, one final thought. So what's one thing you'd want every woman to know or think differently about when it comes to money? And then also as a closing bit, I'd like you to just tell the audience where people can find more about you, or where they can find you if they want to talk to you. So the first bit is some advice or one thing you want everyone that's listening to know or think differently about, and then finally how they can get to know you more.
I think for women, my advice would be that you can do anything and be anything, and that you can take control of your own finances. That you don't have to be controlled by anything or anyone. You are in control of your destiny, and what money can give you is choices. I'd also say that if you're thinking about making that leap to self-employment as a woman, then take the leap, because you don't need to do it and have it Instagram ready. You can do it and build it slowly but surely. I'm a strong believer that some of the best industries in this country that have made the country great are businesses that have started around a kitchen table by women doing it around childcare and other jobs. Because as women, we have great power. So I'd say, take control. You can do this. And then from a Blackwood Wellbeing Centre, if you're in the South Wales Valleys and you're thinking about being self-employed, check out our website, Blackwood Wellbeing Centre. There's loads of information there. My contact details are there, and I'm more than happy to help you with any help that you need taking that leap to self-employment.
Fabulous. Kathy, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation today. I hope you have too.
I really, really have. So thank you very much. It's
Great.
made me think about money in a very different way.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I really, really have. So, thank you so much for joining me. And we'll make sure that all the details about Blackwood Wellbeing Centre are linked to the show notes so that people can find those.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.